Chers auditeurs,
Dear listeners,
bonjour.
welcome in Comme d'Archi Podcast Season 4
Saison 4, dans le monde fascinant des architectes.
and in the architectural projects.
Je suis Anne-Charlotte Deponte, passionnée d'architecture et docteur des universités en histoire de l'archi.
I am one of the spokespersons of Anne-Charlotte, who is a PhD in architecture history.
Merci
Thank you
d'être avec moi aujourd'hui.
to be with us today.
Et
And
maintenant,
now,
lundi en français, place au talent.
and Wednesday, let's talk projects. In English, of course.
Bienvenue dans Comme d'Archi.
Dear listeners, good morning. This is Esther on behalf of Anne-Charlotte. It's good to meet you again. Rather than abruptly replaying our recording from 2 years ago on the City Roch project in Montpellier, an emblematic city of Mediterranean France, we are going to reveal all the highlights of the project. Because the impressive and now famous Roch residential tower, integrated in the project, designed by the Parisian agency Brenac Gonzalez Associates and carried by the teams Sogeprom Pragma and Vinci Immobilier, has now been delivered. Guillaume Maréchaux, associate architect at Brenac Gonzalez, puts it this way.
This is a mixed-use project in Montpellier, near the train station, not far from the Mediterranean coast, which is really important for the project. And it's a mixed use. There is housing, there is offices and commercial.
It is one of the components of the larger City Roch program, 12,600 square meters, which includes a 3,480 square meters office building, Roch Office, a 1,780 square meters commercial base, Roch and Store, and a Roch assisted housing building. The Roch tower itself comprises 76 flats spread over 16 floors. It is 5,000 square meters. Not so dizzying, but full of challenges in a France that has become very cautious in the image of world events. On the other hand, this new project from Montpellier, joyful and delicate, shows us that the drive to live is still there and that a desirable future, accompanied by a prolific building imagination, is still possible, on condition that it knows how to adapt. The first register on which the architects have worked on the city project addresses the historic city, what we might call the lower city. It is materialized by an architectural concrete base in a stone color with varying heights. It develops like a ribbon of stone. Its architectural orthogonality brings together all the programs that make up the block, a base of shops and a 7 floors office building facing the station. The second register is addressed to the distance, to the upper city. Its geometry is changing. It frees itself from orthogonality and becomes organic. The undulating forms of its plateaus and terraces, reminiscent of contour lines, are piled up and successively offset. These overhangs are connected to each other by a giant metal mesh. The dwellings have been designed with the climate in mind. It is a Mediterranean tower that values the uses and fluidity between inside and outside. This is thanks to the presence of very generous terraces. The outdoor spaces are designed as continuous living areas. They are generously sized and provide shade without depriving the homes of light. The two urban and architectural themes of base and emergence of the project are illustrated by structural choices. Guillaume Maréchaux and Jean-Pierre Levêque, associate architects of the Brenac Gonzalez Agency, describe it as follows.
We experiment for this project a lot of parametric studies, to transform the sketches to the good design for the...
We use grasshopper to modelize the facade.
The base of the city represents the low skyline of the project. It directly faces the neighboring built fronts. It adopts the mineral and warm materiality of the city. It is the image of the stone city of Montpellier, that of its historic center, that of its districts designed by Ricardo Bofill with its light beige concrete. For City Roch, the commercial base follows a regular, regulated structural grid in the form of porticos. They allow for great transparency. The concrete is naturally colored by the warm-colored sediments of the Montpellier region. The offices extend this regular grid of the base towards the sky in a logic of continuity of the base of the city. As this building is after the silo car park, the first facade of the lot and of the ZAC visible from the south exit of the station, it seemed fundamental to the architects to give it a sober identity. This identity is characterized by a shift in the grid from one level to the next. The grid is then offset by 1.80 meter per level and gives the office facades a dynamic feel. As with the base, this structural grid on the facade is made up of light beige concrete to ensure continuity of the material. The higher Roch tower is characterized by the undulating shapes of its floors and terraces, which are also stacked with a successive offset. Its wide, white lacquered metal overhangs, linked together by the mesh, contrast with the regularity of the concrete body, forming a regular orthogonal core. The large exterior spaces illustrate the constructive intelligence of the project. Firstly, through parametric work in the design phase, and secondly, through a judicious synergy between the structural work company and the facade designer. It should be noted that located in the heart of Montpellier, in the immediate vicinity of the SNCF train station, this vast operation is an exception in the urban landscape, where ZACs generally come to life as extensions of the city. This exceptional location redefines the city's contours. City Roch is rebuilding the link between a district that has long felt isolated from the city's transformations and the historic center of Montpellier. What were the greatest challenges for this project in such a privileged location? First of all, the challenge of integrating the older buildings. Secondly, it was necessary to incorporate pedestrian traffic, car access, and public transport. Lines 2 and 4 of the tramway pass right by the building. Finally, taking into account a brand new economic and commercial life in the volumetric treatment was just as much of a feat, with these new buildings radiating around the tower. When the project was launched, the district was beginning its second urban life. The former railway site is to be transformed into a new residential area. What are the landmarks around the station? The political will is to create a single contemporary landmark in the heart of the peaceful city. This landmark should not break away from the city, but, on the contrary, should accompany and echo it with heights similar to the Arbre Blanc or the Polygon Tower, thus reinforcing a new scale of the city without crushing it. Sogeprom Pragma's and Vinci Immobilier's joint development proposal with the Brenac Gonzalez Associates agency was chosen for an architecture that escapes austere and mineral typologies, an architecture that is in tune with Mediterranean life. In a way, an architecture that brings shade without darkening, freshness where it will be good to live. On the edge of the historic city, the ZAC St Roch, a territory conquered on the rails, must favor the emergence of a new animated, open, mixed and sustainable district. In this urban puzzle, which is being put in place, Lot 3 occupies a particularly strategic and privileged place, because, with its height of 57 meters, the project symbolizes the gateway to the new district and, as such, must form the link between the life of the past and the future Montpellier that is still desirable. Brenac Gonzalez Associates is an important agency with many projects to its credit and many more to come. It was founded in the 1980s by Olivier Brenac and Xavier Gonzalez. The former is a graduate of the École Spéciale d'Architecture and also holds a master's degree in urban planning from Les Ponts et Chaussées. The latter is a graduate of the École Nationale Supérieure d'Architecture de Paris-Belleville, was a resident of the Villa Médicis Hors-les-Murs, and as such joined Tadao & Do's agency. He is also a member of the Académie d'Architecture. Over time, Brenac Gonzalez Associates has integrated new partners, Jean-Pierre Levêque, Emmanuel Persson, and Guillaume Maréchaux. Their team is interdisciplinary and includes about 50 collaborators from different cultures and nationalities. Jean-Pierre Levêque puts it this way.
Right now, we are about 50%, and we build as well housing, office building, and a lot of public equipment like school, high school, university. We also build some hospitals.
Xavier Gonzalez, who has also become a renowned teacher, says that in his essay, The Hedgehog and the Fox, Isaiah Berlin divides authors or artists into two categories. On the one hand, the hedgehog, who sees the world only through a single rule that he wishes to bring to the sublime. On the other hand, there is the fox, a curious animal that draws on a wide variety of experiences and for whom the world cannot be reduced to a single idea. Our research is more on the side of the fox, because what motivates us is, above all, what we could call a thought in motion, or the quest for a perpetual present, as Henri Bergson would say. Dear listeners, thank you for tuning in. Let's meet again next week for a new Comme d'Archi in English. And until then, take care of yourselves. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. Thanks to Julien Rebours, sound engineer, who is collaborating with us today. Don't forget to tune in to our previews on Instagram at Comme d'Archi Podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, don't hesitate to promote it by giving it 5 stars and a little comment on Apple Podcast or on your favorite podcast platform. And above all, subscribe to listen to all of our episodes for free. See you soon, and until then, take care of yourself.